The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome, everybody. This is Ruby. Welcome to our webinar with Vanessa Gennarelli. Just want to let you know that if you would like to have your lines unmuted, you can raise your quote hand in the GoToMeeting system. And if you have any other technical problems, you can send them to me. I'm called Haystack Team in the attendee list. And I'll hand it over to Cheryl.
Hi, everybody. It's Cheryl Grant here. I think I recognize most of the people that are showing up in our attendee list. Hello, and hope everybody had a good time in Chicago last month. We're joined today by Vanessa Gennarelli. Most of you will know Vanessa. She's the, are you called lead, project lead for P2PU, who's designing a platform badge system. So Vanessa, I'm going to toss it over to you, and you can correct me. I think I may have gotten your title wrong.
I actually prefer mad learning scientist.
Mad learning scientist. Got it.
Right on. Hi guys. I also recognize a lot of the names in the list. It's nice to see you all, my fellow DML badge grantees. So what we're going to talk about today is formative evaluation for educational product development. And while that's a lot of words, it's basically measuring, testing your product, your badge system, to see if what you made is worth its salt. Um, so just a brief overview. We're going to talk about what formative evaluation is, examples of groups that use formative evaluation, the methods and tools for the research, and some sample questions for you that you guys can just pick up and use to help test your systems, in addition to like a sample time frame, so you kind of know how this workflow shakes out. So you may say, Vanessa, why should I test my product or badge system? And my answer is threefold. What you want to find out is can folks actually use it? And in this line of thinking, you take a look at usability and the nomenclature that you're using. For example, I know that there is some. We still haven't, as a group, determined what awarding, receiving, evaluating badges means, and so something that I am testing in my badge system is nomenclature. Do users like what you're making? Because if they don't like it, they probably won't use it. So the questions that you would ask here are about appeal and engagement. And furthermore, since this is learning that we're working in, does this audience get it? And then in this line of thinking, you would take a look at comprehension and recall. But before we get ahead of ourselves, what on earth is formative evaluation? So formative, before, this means that you test your educational product with users during the development of the product, so as opposed to summative evaluation, when the product is complete. And the reason that you do this is so that the results can inform the direction of your product, and it can be done at any time in the development process. And unlike other kinds of research, like straight up serious academic research, not that this isn't serious, but this is meant to be done really quickly. We Formative evaluation takes at its core that you need to move quickly with your product, and so the research itself, the tools and methods are pretty speedy. So just to give you a sense of who uses formative evaluation, Sesame Street has a massive research arm. Sesame Street, I don't think I'm overstating it when I say they actually have more researchers than content developers. And what is unique about the way that Sesame Street uses formative evaluation is that on set, when actually the content developers and the directors and the characters are all on set, they actually have researchers on set who have done formative evaluation with users to help direct the product as it's being developed on set. It's very unique. So in this design, Sesame Street's research design, content and the formative research are actually hand in hand. They work concurrently. for the sake of diversity, you might expect that that Sesame Street, a product that teaches kids, uses formative evaluation, but Frontline, um, PBS's product Frontline, uses formative evaluation as well. During when they are developing their stories, they want to make sure that the message resonates with the audience, and that people understand the scope and sequence of the story. So they'll employ methods of formative evaluation as well. And while those are two real massive outfits, both Sesame Street and Frontline, little shops use formative evaluation as well. It's not just something that that you can use if you have massive research resources. CloudKid is less than 15 folks. It's a shop in Brighton, the Brighton area of Boston, that develops content, educational content for kids. And they work all the time with subject matter experts and testing with their target market kids. So they develop their content concurrently with research as well. So you might say, all right, got it. I get that these very formal institutions use formative evaluation, but can I do this myself? Do I have time for it? And how on earth do I even start? Everyone with me so far? Yeah?
I'm going to say yes.
Well, the answer is yes, and you will crush it because any testing is better than no testing. And anytime that you have conversations with your users, subject matter experts and users, that will inform your product, and it's immeasurably valuable. And I'm going to show you a few examples of how and why. So we're going to walk through a few of the methods that that formative evaluation uses, and I like to start with my favorite, which are interviews. And when I interview target users, I create a protocol of questions, so like 10 questions, and I state the question, and then to myself, I have another line of questioning that says, why am I asking it? And what do I expect to hear? And that helps me sort of focus and listen for the sort of right stuff. Does that make sense? And the benefits of doing interviews is that you can hear firsthand how users speak about this stuff. You can hear their logic and their thinking in their own language. And if you're one-on-one, you can take the direction of the interview anywhere you need to go. So if you test appeal, engagement, and comprehension, but like appeal is where you're seeing a lot of stuff going wrong, you can spend more time on that because it's an extremely individualized experience. The limitations of interviews is that you have to find those people, those pesky people, and if you want to do the analysis, whether or not you like want to transcribe or make notes, sometimes the analysis of interviews can be pretty time intensive. And I've mentioned appeal, comprehension, and engagement and usability, but whenever I introduce a method and why it's used, I'm also going to give you guys some sample questions that I've used that maybe will help you as you test your badge system. So appeal, what badge would you want to share with a friend? Like which one would you be proudest of? Which one would you apply for or not apply for? And that'll tell you, like, I think that these are more precise questions than like which badge do you like. If you're testing comprehension, say that if someone applies for a badge and you watch them apply for the badge, you might stop them and say like, okay, what just happened? Do you understand what you just did? What does this badge mean to you? Those are both, I think, pretty solid questions when it comes to comprehension. Another one of my favorite methods is a think aloud protocol. And a think aloud protocol means that you sit down with a user and they walk through your product and they say exactly what they're thinking, everything about the experience. They're just talking aloud, stream of consciousnessly, about what they're feeling, looking at, and deciding. And this is a great method because you can observe when people have hesitations, when they encounter some difficulty firsthand, and you can observe both positive and negative reactions. But it can be kind of awkward because then you're sitting there with someone and you just kind of sit there silently while they do their thing, because you want it's hard. It can be difficult to prompt that sort of thing and stay silent. Uh, but for a think aloud protocol, the way that I would phrase questions for the badge system is you've completed a project and are applying for a badge. Apply for a badge, describing what you notice, and think at each step of the way. So what you want to do is you want to frame the experience for the user, so that they're in the mindset of applying for it, and that way they'll know what to look for, and what their intended next action is. So an example of a think aloud protocol that we've used at PDPU is usertesting.com. And I highly, highly, highly recommend usertesting.com. I cannot say enough good stuff about it. What happens is that you give a user that they find and recruit for you a scenario. So for us, it would be you've completed your project and applying for a badge, or select a badge you'd like to apply for. That would be the scenario. And then there's a screen cap of the user as they complete this experience. So you're watching what they do, and they're also narrating it for you. And we use that to significantly improve our course user experience. Now you can see that was the before, and this is the after. And if you would like to see a full report of how we used formative evaluation to improve our course UX, those slides are up there at that link. So focus groups are another method, and that's a structured protocol with 2 or more targeted users. And focus groups are great because you get feedback from lots of people in one go, but they can be kind of complicated too, because sometimes one person can influence the rest of the group. And it's hard to get people to be there at the same place at the same time. But if you can get that, and you listen, it's a really, really wonderful way to get intensive feedback. The questions that I would ask in focus groups are a little bit more leading, because you'd want people to sort of play off each other and let the conversation sort of evolve and listen. So what did you like most, least? What would you like to know more about? And for comprehension, do you understand the difference between badge X and badge Y? What do you understand the difference between badge X and badge Y to be? So you can see how those questions are a little more open-ended than the other ones, which are a little bit more precise. Another method would be questionnaires. I know that some of you have used questionnaires to test your products. And these are a series of questions that may have standardized answers. And this is extremely lightweight. You can, hammer out a questionnaire on SurveyMonkey and have results really, really quickly. But my experience with questionnaires is that asking really precise and reliable questions is hard. It's difficult. And in addition to that, I can't observe where both positive and negative reactions, and all the data is self-reported. So I think questionnaires can be kind of tricky, especially with a product that's in development. But should you want to use a questionnaire, some good sample questions are: rate how much you dislike badge X on a scale, and make sure that you make clear what the scale is. And then clarity, comprehension. What are 3 things you learned about from X? Does that make sense? Is everybody with me? I'm not paying attention to the chat, so
Everybody is with you. I don't know. There's actually very few people in the chat. I think they're mostly on their headsets.
Right on. The next method that I'm gonna talk about, besides usertesting.com and the Think Aloud protocol, I'm so psyched about this method, click testing, which is one example is a Verify app, which if you upload designs, they can be a static PDF. They will recruit for you users in your target market, target age range, to click on which design they might prefer. They could also annotate the screen, and you could also ask them where they would expect to find the next, like a button to click next or the button to apply for a badge. So it's really fantastic as you're designing to test static designs in the mock-up phase. This is pre-launch testing. I am currently using Verify app to test both the navigation and nomenclature of our badge system on badges.p2pu.org, because I'd like to know where people would expect to find a place to apply for a badge or review other people's badges. And I'm also testing the nomenclature when you ask where would you expect to find it, if people are confused about the words that we're using. And it's super fast and it's so cheap. It's like crazy awesome. I'm going to show you how. It is only adult testers, and I know that a lot of people are testing with kids, but it might be useful for some of you. So when I was redesigning the P2PU homepage, we asked users where would they highlight to create a course, and within a day we had 538 viewers and 62 responses. And you can see that for the most part, people understood where to create a course, but they were really confused about the redundancy of it. And then they also, like, without us prompting, put comments about the fact that our labeling about what a peer was very confusing. So we've refined that. But that's what an annotation test looks like. And now we
have a comment from, sorry, can I interrupt you,
nope,
Vanessa?
Go for it. Go for
Charles
it.
is just saying it's a great tool because it keeps you also from asking unintentionally leading questions.
Exactly. And now you can see what the final result was. We took away the activity feed. People didn't understand it. And we made it more about the featured courses because people wanted to know more about what P2PU was than they wanted to see the activity feed. So now you get, the idea is that you get more of a texture of P2PU, and Verify app helped us figure that out. And the full report for that, you can find that up on SlideShare as well. So so the sample project schedule for formative evaluation and user testing. First, what you would want to do is identify what you're evaluating. Are you evaluating just the home page? Are you evaluating the apply for a badge workflow? Really focus in on what piece you're gonna tackle. Decide upon your tools and methods. Recruit participants from your target user base. I think you might need a release, but if you use Verify app or usertesting.com, you don't. But for a focus group, you would need a release. So just check up on whether or not you need one of those. Conduct your research and analyze results and present to your project team. I'm able to do this usually in less than 1 week. So it isn't that labor intensive. You can take a week to make sure that you're doing it right and people understand, like, and want to use your product. I just wanted to give mad props to everyone who taught me things about formative evaluation. There's these are also people, if you want to find more resources about formative evaluation, these are people who you could look them up on the internet and see what they published and what blog posts they have. Alana Holland is specifically the teacher of formative evaluation at the Harvard Graduate School of Education. So so that's my talking at you. Please, I would welcome you to ask me things, and I would like to ask things of you guys as well.
I am not getting a whole lot of questions. There's low numbers in the chat room, so people, if you want to be active in Chatsy, it's at chatsy.com/DMLComp. But I do have some questions that I've been thinking. You actually, I was thinking of the questions, and then next slide you would answer them. So I've been crossing them off as we go.
Can I ask questions of the people on this call?
Yeah.
There
will be the usual slow, awkward moments while people get back in off their mutes and stuff like that. But yeah, go for it.
Yeah, if people, can you sort of unmute everyone? Does that work?
I can. This is Ruby, your
Okay.
operator. I can unmute
Awesome.
everyone one at a time, but it's my experience that some people aren't prepared for it, and if they don't realize what we're doing, we'll start hearing their dogs barking and whatnot. But I can do it if people want me to.
Let's
There's
try it out. I would really love to have a conversation if that would be cool,
I think
because I
we've
want
got
to
a
learn from
small
you
enough
guys.
group that we could do that. How about we do that? And people who don't want to can deep mute themselves.
Okay. As I said, I'll be doing it one at a time, and if I do hear noise that's inappropriate, I just remute the line. Here we go. Like that, for example.
Things are getting crazy.
Yeah.
Getting crazy on a haystack call. All right, so my question for everyone else is, uh, have you done any testing with your badge systems, and what has worked and what wasn't? And if you haven't done testing, what would you like to test about your badge system? What are you concerned about? What are your pain points?
Everyone, all your lines are open.
This is Charles with MentorMob. Can you hear me okay?
I can. You can speak a little louder.
It would be easier
Sure,
if other
okay.
people mute themselves who aren't talking.
Yeah, I'll move my mouth up to the speaker here. So we were displaying and issuing badges for Girl Scouts,
Right on.
and so there's still a fair amount of here's a pain point. The difference between a badge and what it means and why it matters that you can push it to a backpack and why it matters that there's something called a criteria URL, which has no business being mentioned at all to consumer-facing conversations. And the difference between that and a graphic and manipulating a PNG or a JPEG on the computer, which girls are familiar with for the most part. They have trouble understanding that a badge is something much more than that.
And what methods did you use to figure that out?
Well, we're the Odd Duck project, right? Where kids are familiar already with the concept of badges because they have physical ones.
Right on.
And so for us, it was easy. We sort of had a built-in first line of defense, which was this means the same thing as a physical badge that you're already familiar with. But as at MentorMob, we're going to start hopefully this summer incorporating badges for users who are learning about other stuff who are not Girl Scouts, that we don't have that line of defense anymore.
Do you how did you I guess if I can ask you a little bit more, how did you find out that there was a disconnect between what the badge image was and what it represented?
Because the way that our system is set up, you can girls are manipulating images on Google Sites to build a really simple web page. And then they and everybody, really, administrators and everyone, were talking about, oh, the badge that we've got, which was the PNG file on the Google Sites page that linked to a real badge on the Mozilla website or on the MentorMob website. And so I think it was a product of how how our system works. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I guess kind of like I think that's an interesting research problem, or maybe not a problem, but like an area to explore. And that's one of the reasons that I focused on comprehension in this line of questioning, is because I think in every badge system that people are designing, or every badge, I guess, ecosystem as part of this larger ecosystem, I think that we're going to find that the difference between what the badge looks like and what it means will surface again and again and again and again. So that's the comprehension questions that are outlined in this presentation will hopefully be valuable to you guys as you begin to surface that.
Yeah, that's great, and I think you're right. The answer has to do with a comprehensive introduction over the next while about what a badge is and how you aren't exposed to one the same way you are to an image, or you shouldn't be, because uh, learning happens before you even get to one, if we're introducing them right.
I couldn't agree with you more. And then the way that we tested that, because P2P is on their third iteration of badges, so this was we just launched our third iteration, and when I was evaluating the second iteration for sort of improvements or the ways to implement a different kind of learning theory, um, what we learned is that people focused a lot on the image, and we needed to put the criteria first. We needed
Mm.
the sort of creation flow, we needed to surface the fact that, well, at P2PU it's not necessarily criteria, it's projects. But we needed to surface the project first and getting people to think about that and the badge and what it looked like second.
Third iteration. You are so wise.
Well, it's been a few years, but yeah. So who else has done some testing with their badge system or has encountered some pain points in their design?
Ruby, do you want to unmute people?
Everybody is still unmuted, actually. You're doing
Okay.
great jobs muting your lines on your end. Everybody's open.
Great. There are a couple questions in Chatsy. Do you want me to ask those, Vanessa, while we wait for other people to?
Right on.
So Emily's saying, well, she's telling you something as opposed to asking a question, but this is actually one of my questions too. How do you go about getting the right group of people to test with? Are you pretty opportunistic, or do you try and get a lot of variety?
Well, it depends on what it is that you're testing. And for the P2PU course, I did a research project on course creation. That was one of the ones that I referenced, and I did interviews for that project. And within the human-computer interaction research, I actually did a lit review about who to recruit for this kind of project, and I split it into two. I interviewed people who were like power users of the site, so they knew it really, really well, and they had like a lot of complaints because they were so familiar with it. And I interviewed people in another data bucket who were using the site for the first time, and the results are different, but it was really, really nice to have both because we want to, of course, listen to our user base, but at the same time, someone coming to the site for the first time had a different set of pain points when we spoke to them. Another way you might think about it, Emily, is that you might think about a series of what they call screeners, so screening questions, and if you want to test your product with a group of 18 to 35-year-old women, sites like Verify App or usertesting.com will make that for you. If you wanted 18 to 35-year-old women who have access to a smartphone and who are on the internet 8 hours a day or more, that they can filter that for you. But I think it has to do, first of all, with identifying your target demographic, and then recruiting those people. But for something like P2PU, we're just looking for adults. It's really because we're an entire user-generated content site. I don't usually put any limitations on who to test with, just adults. Does that answer your question, Emily? It might help if you give us a particular scenario of what you're looking to test.
Yeah, her comment was it's important to emphasize the importance of recruiting a broad but relevant group of people to test with.
Right.
I was the one. Oh yes, she's saying it's all good.
Okay. Broad and
There's a
relevant.
question from Mark that's wanting to know either from you or from other people. Do you guys know of other community members testing in K-12?
I can answer that. This is Brad Barker from the 4-H project, and we are doing testing with youth right around the middle school level. And
What are you testing?
Well, first we tested our assessment instruments. We came up with some survey questions and open-ended questions. So we did 3 sites, and we went through each individual question with each site. We had about 30 youth for the evaluations, and really what we did is we read each question. We did some focus groups, asked if they understand each question, what each question meant to them, and we did 3 iterations of that. So now we feel pretty good that the survey instruments to be awarded a badge is pretty strong. And so the next thing we're going to do is some usability testing. So now that we have the whole system created, we're going to go back and test, make sure youth can actually use the system to answer all those questions to be awarded the badge. And also our badge issuers are adult volunteers. So we'll go through the same process with them and make sure they can use the system as we've developed it to actually award the badge.
That's awesome. Would you mind, I don't know if you'd be able to share both the protocol and the results with us to see what you did?
Absolutely. I don't have IRB approval, of course, so none of it will be published, but the process I can talk about.
That'd be really cool. I'd really like to learn. Which of the stuff that we mentioned, which do you think will be most useful to you?
Well, we use the focus groups quite a bit because we went to 3 separate sites, and we went to Washington State and Idaho. So we actually flew out to different sites, and so we only had a day with each site. So the focus groups worked really well, especially with the youth. They didn't seem reluctant to talk about their experience and what they thought, so that was good. These are 4-H youth as well, so they're of course the best and the brightest. Mm-hmm. And then so we will do the same process as we look at the actual infrastructure that we've created. We'll have focus groups. We'll go through each question one by one and ask them, what that means to them, what we're trying to ask, what it means to them, using a focus group for the most part.
Awesome. Well, we would love to see your the list of questions that you plan to ask people, and sort of like your top level takeaways too.
Certainly.
It's great. It's great that you guys have made some time in your calendar for testing. That's awesome.
So I have another question for you. Earlier you were saying the set of standard questions, you want them to be precise and reliable. Mm-hmm. Is there anywhere people can go to get sort of an idea of, something as a jumping off point to help people think about what would make a precise, reliable set of questions?
Indeed. There's there's a great book called, I think it's called Asking Good Questions. I'm gonna pull it up on my Kindle right here. Which ones are in the cloud? It is called Asking Questions. Hold on just a second. It is called Asking Questions, the definitive guide to sorry, I'm trying to pull it up on my phone. It's not.
And then we have well, you can, while you're doing that, maybe we can see if Mark is able to surface here. Mark is having some audio issues. Are you there, Mark? Mark is in deep mute.
He's still muted. There he comes.
I like deep mute.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Hi, Mark.
Hey everybody, how are you?
We're good.
I know you can't all answer.
Everybody is good.
I'll imagine an awesome answer. Hey, thanks again for doing this, Vanessa. It's really great. I have a question about one of the things we've been thinking a lot about is how to sort of create in testing with users, creating sort of archetypes for the super user, the somewhere in the middle user, and the infrequent but sometimes user. And I wonder whether folks on this call, Vanessa included.
That's why I wrote you, Josh, and Andrea separately.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, somebody's.
Leah?
Exactly what we said.
And we did.
She's gone.
Is there a so my question is whether folks have any thoughts or best practices around how you categorize the users that you're testing with, and then how you kind of weight feedback from each of those types of user. Does that make sense?
It does, and I'll take a stab at it. How are you determining these three like buckets? Like how did you determine that there was like super user, occasional user, and rare, I guess, user?
So we haven't yet, and I guess that's part of my question is are you doing that to sort of are the groups that you're, say, doing a focus group with, are they of a certain type of user, or are they mixed, and how are you identifying what type of user they are? For us, what we have to go on is our sort of analytics and what kind of triggers are this is a closed space, so what, for individual users, what kind of triggers are they actually activating through the system? So so that would be how we would do it, but I'm guessing all the different systems would be doing it differently if you do it at all.
What I might do in that situation is I might do interviews, but what I would figure out before I even sat down to interview someone is the sort of vision of the power user, the occasional user, the rare user, and what their intended next action is. So like do you want a power user to like create, do you want them to do community review for your badges? Do you want the occasional user to become a power user? I would in those use cases, I would figure out like what the cycle is, because then when you're asking questions, you can figure out what would help them make a better intended next action. And as far as splitting people up, I don't know that there's a good way that there's like, I don't know that I have like a general rule of thumb about that. I think it's really particular to the situation. But what I like to do, as I said before, is like keep the data buckets separate, because it's like two different lines of questioning. If you're doing power users versus people who've never seen it before, like you'll get the texture of the data will be different, and they'll both be very valuable to you. But I would sort of present two executive summaries. Does that help? Does anyone else have a rule of thumb about how to do the audience segmentation? I hear clickety clack.
Someone's taking notes. I think Mark must be muted again.
The book in the meantime is by Norman Bradburn, and it's called Asking Questions: The Definitive Guide to Questionnaire Design. And what's great about this book is it really makes you realize that there are a couple of errors or potential errors that a question we might unwittingly make. Have you guys ever heard of double barreling the question? Is that something that's familiar to people?
When you unintentionally ask two questions in one?
Right. So it's a pretty good accessible primer to writing reliable survey questions.
There's another reference in Chatsy from Carla. I don't know if Carla looks to be still here. Carla is talking about paper-based prototype testing.
Mm-hmm.
Carla, do you want to ask a specific question about that?
Her line is still muted. Here she comes.
Am I still? Okay. Hey, everybody. So I just had a quick question about kind of testing earlier on prior to where you have something that's online and whether or not you'd address that in any way, because I think that's something that would be useful for people as they start to develop their badges, thinking through what constitutes a badge and what is meaningful prior to someone getting issued the badge. So a lot of what you've been discussing has been kind of post creation of the badge.
Sure, and for that, I cannot say enough good things about Verify app. You could upload. I saw that Jess Klein is working on badge prototypes. I saw her blog post earlier this week, which you guys should all read because it's really good. It's really awesome. But she could totally upload those photos to Verify app and ask users where they would expect to click or what they would what they think this area means or what they would expect to do next. Actually, in addition, Verify app is a really, really great way to do pre-launch testing. So I've used it for stuff like paper prototypes. I used it for when I was designing badges.p2p.org. I used it for drawings that I made in Keynote. So so really, it's a tool that's made to be used in the primary stages, the formative stages of the design process. And Carla, if you would like to do that, I would be happy to help you and Jess set it up and share the results of what I've done before. I am used to much harder questions from Carla Casilli.
Now you've given her a challenge. She's going to say the same. How can I stump Vanessa? I just put the URL from Jess Klein's blog post in Chatsy. Oh, Carla's triple tasking. This is what happens when people are building badge systems for entire cities. They have to triple task. It could be, Vanessa, that a lot of people are in early stages, such early stages that and I don't know. The community would have a better sense of where people are at. So it's a good question about the paper prototyping because people may not feel like they're quite ready to bring in people to test, and I'm not sure how many of them are doing formative evaluation or if they're gonna, bingo, here it is. Or some people, I think, like Intel or Badges for Vets, they're sort of testing in a. And actually, I think Randy's on the phone, so maybe Randy can unmute and say something about this. I'm not sure if there's any formal testing going on right now. Randy, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you for the invitation, and I've really appreciated the presentation, Vanessa. We have been a little slow to get users logged onto the site and registered. Some technical things, some heartburn, but we're at that point where we are already combing the social media site to begin looking for thematic things. The questions that we want to ask are, at least the first iteration of them are formed, and we're looking at the usability and the value of the site to both veterans and prospective employers. There have been little tweaks along the way just from things we've learned as some people have given input. So some on-the-fly kind of informal assessment has already been affecting direction. But we'll look at the population of users, especially, and do some demographic profiling, just describe the people. And then we've asked people in the registration process for permission to come back later with questions. We'll confirm that it's in line with the permission from the research review. And those who agree to that, we have a list of questions to ask them about the usability of the site and what is the value to them. Basically, it's not a badge people go and apply for. It's a badge they earned in their training in the military, but the process is to translate the skill training they got in the military into civilian job-related terms and make that an attractive tool that is very user-friendly and quickly shows their training to prospective employers. It's also a win-win for employers, so we'll go back to some of them asking questions because they can now, with some tweaks in the site, put in some parameters and they can see the available pool of individuals with skill sets in a given area that they might want to pull from 5 miles to however many miles. So that's coming. Bob and Eric and I will be opening the database now that we have not as many as we would like to have, but we have enough to start looking at what kind of real sense we can make of the data. And we'll do that in the next couple of weeks.
Please show it to us.
Will we show it to you?
Yes.
Why, sure. Yeah, that's
Please
the
do.
idea.
Awesome.
And that kind of raises, I just put this in Chatsy, I don't know how to coordinate it or exactly where everybody's at, but maybe we can figure out who's ready to be testing and have people test across badge systems. I see Mary from NASA saying that there's a URL where people can participate, and then there's a warning, you'll have to solve several Pythagorean theorem problems. I think she's serious. So maybe we can figure out a way at some point toward the later stages of the grant cycle where we can do that. I'll have to hear back from people about whether this is the right time for it, or that's not the kind of information that we've been asking people to send us, so I'll have to do some detective work to figure that out.
That would be awesome. I think it actually would be a very, very interesting blog post from DML Haystack is like the state of testing in badge systems, or the state of usability or form of evaluation in badge systems at this moment. And whoever is sharing can share like the methods that they used and their findings. I think that would be, I know there are a lot of questions about badge validity, and while this is not like meta assessment, we're not assessing the level of assessment, but I think it would lend some credence to the validity question that I know that's been coming up.
Yeah, so you're saying ask people how they're evaluating their badge systems, and let's get some feedback from people about how they're doing it.
And then aggregate that, and I think it'd be a really compelling blog post to be like the state of testing for DML badge grantees or something like that.
You just created a bunch of homework for your peers.
I love that. but I care about the badge ecosystem, so I think that didn't mean to create work for you guys. Okay, love you, bye. Well, with that, unfortunately, I have to scoot. I have to go get on a plane. But
Yeah.
You should let everybody know what you're about to do.
Yeah, she's going to go hide in Europe after assigning all that homework.
I'm moving to Berlin in an hour. So everything I own is in one duffel bag, and it's going on a flight to Berlin. I'm traveling around the world for the next year.
Traveling around the world to
Finland, Italy, back to Minneapolis, then off to St. Petersburg, Russia, then to Taiwan, Bangkok, Buenos Aires, and then Mexico City.
Still staying with P2PU.
Of course. P2PU to the core.
And then you'll also be working with a lot of people. It sounds like you'll be using some of your skills that you were talking about here today, interviewing and giving people feedback about their projects. Is that right?
Totally. That is the plan.
Man, you are a jerk.
What's that?
I just said you're a jerk.
Well, if you guys want to share anything with me or you have any follow-up questions, I'm Mozzarella. My email address is vanessa@p2pu.org, but I'm sure that the Haystack folks will provide the information so you can stalk me around the world. But I would really love to hear about your projects.
Thanks so much, Vanessa.
You guys are awesome. I'll see you on the other side.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.